So yesterday we were discussing different kinds of passages of the Talmud about prayer. In some places in the Talmud it says that you shouldn't ask for too much. You should be like a poor man by the door, and you shouldn't ask for too much. That's what it says in some places in the Talmud. And this is a normal behavior, normal good character breeds that kind of approach because Hashem doesn't owe us anything. If we would be honest with our virtues and our deficiencies, then we would realize that Hashem doesn't owe us anything. We did really for bringing my share that story about that little girl with the weights. This little girl, she's from Belgium. Rabbi Salatitsky said this is his granddaughter. He's the Rebbe's emissary in Belgium. So she was measuring her day, and she says, Sprinz gave tzedakah today, and I gave tzedakah today, and she's moving her hand to the right as she's saying the different things, good things people did. And I davened and I cleaned my room, and she said, but actually I didn't throw away my plate at dinner, and she's moving her left hand down. And also my brother threw his plate away, and she went through the whole day talking to Hashem. And then she finishes the whole thing with her right hand lower, and she says, the side of good has won. Mashiach has to come. So her grandfather asked her, what was that? She said, I learned in school that every deed we do tips the scale, the side of merit. So I went through everything, and I realized that we have more merit than not, and we deserve the good stuff. Anyway, so if we would take that on a personal level, honestly, we wouldn't say that Hashem owes us anything. So therefore, the Gemara says the way to approach Hashem is not to ask for too much. That's what the Gemara says. You ask just a small amount. On the other hand, it says in the pasuk, which we say every day in davening, Hashem says, "Open up your mouth wide, and I will satiate." Opening up your mouth wide means you should ask for everything that you want clearly. It seems. So which one is it? Do we ask only a little bit because we know we don't deserve, or do we ask for everything clearly because Torah says, Hashem says, "I am the Lord your God, took you out of Egypt. You see, I can do miracles for you." And therefore, you should ask all the way. So there are different ways of answering this question. Maharsha answers this question. Maharsha says that when it says in the pasuk, "Open your mouth wide," it means ask Hashem for Torah. Let's say you're like Rabbi Akiva. You didn't study Torah until you're 40 years old. You might say, "Oh, I can't. There's only so much I can learn. I'm only 40." And then so the Torah says, open your mouth wide. Don't say that. Don't say that you're only able to do so much and able to do more. Open your mouth wide. That's the simple meaning of that's a Maharsha explained. But then there is the explanation of Tzemach Tzedek mentions the Maharsha. But then there are other commentaries in on this verse, and they say this verse is saying, open your mouth wide and ask Hashem for all your needs. And this is in sync, it seems, with one of the prayers that we say. We say this prayer in the Slichas before Rosh Hashanah. We say it on Yom Kippur. The prayer goes like this: the needs of your people are great, and their mind is small. Their minds are narrow. They're in a state of constraint. And one of the commentaries explains that, you know why we feel we have so many needs? It's because we have such small minds. If we had more broader minds, if we were able to look at things more objectively, then we wouldn't be so insistent that we need so much. It's only because that we have such a narrow perspective on life that we ask for so much. That's what some commentaries say. But on the other hand, if you do feel you have such great needs, what are you supposed to do? So there's a mitzvah, there's an argument among the sages about prayer. Some sages say that prayer is a rabbinic thing. It's rabbinic to pray 3 times a day. It's a rabbinical injunction to pray 3 times a day. The Torah says to pray, it doesn't say when to pray. So praying 3 times a day is rabbinic. Some say it's a biblical obligation to pray at least once a day. Some say, but there is another opinion which says there's never an obligation to pray except for the following scenario. When you feel that you need something, doesn't matter what it is, you feel you need something, Hashem says, the only one you should be asking is me. So it's taka. It's true that we shouldn't be in a state of feeling we have so many needs, and we should be a little more objective and look at things more truthfully. But if we do feel a great need, what are we supposed to do with that? I feel I need a lot. My needs are very great because my mind is small. Okay, that is the way I see life. What should I do with that now? So the Torah says if I feel that my needs are great, I have to ask for them. I have a biblical obligation to ask for needs, physical, spiritual, whatever it is. As long as I feel a need, Hashem tells me, I don't want you asking anybody else. I want you to ask me. So it seems that this is the right way to go about things. So by the way, you know how to fix the brightness in this computer by any chance? The bright, you're a computer guy, right? Yeah. Windows something, I don't know what. Okay. I gotta figure it out. Maybe not. You think I know where my settings are? Let's type display settings on Google.
If you're on a Windows, a lot of them have like a little button at the bottom that has FN, and then you hold down FN, and then one of the numbers all the way at the top has a little symbol of, looks like a sun, which you can, while holding down FN, you can change the contrast and the screen brightness.
Okay, guys, it's now a bright day. So you give Taamuz. Thank you so much. Wow, that is awesome. Okay, so getting back to so it says that you're supposed to ask for need. You feel you have a need, you have to ask for it. Okay, that's what Torah says. But if you don't feel you have those needs, or if you have more of an honest and objective perspective on life, so what does the Torah say? So then you should ask like a poor man by the door. That says in one Gemara. There's another Gemara. The other Gemara says that Rish Lakish says if your prayers are in order, then you should ask for lots of things. So that means even though you are not feeling excessively needy, but you see your prayer is in order, then you should ask for lots of things. That's what the Talmud says. That's what some commentaries say. You should ask for lots of. It doesn't matter. Ask Hashem for it all. So what does it mean your prayers are in order? Your prayers are in order. What does that mean? So what that means is that Reish Lakish says in Gemara that there were the people that first Hasidim, they're called, the most pious people. And when they prayed, before they prayed, they would wait for an hour. They would concentrate for an hour. After they concentrated for an hour, they would pray for an hour. And after they finished praying for an hour, they would spend another hour meditation. So these holy tzaddikim were praying that way. That's called having your prayers in order. That you're really into the spiritual stuff. You're really into the spiritual stuff, then your needs aren't your needs. Your needs are God's needs. If you're into spiritual stuff, then although you want your needs for other reasons perhaps also, but if your prayers are in order, if you are in sync with Hashem's desire in that way, so then the Torah says, ask away. Ask away because it says in the Torah, in all your ways you should know Hashem, and everything that you're doing to know Hashem. So then you should ask because the Rebbe said on another occasion that it says in the Mishnah that Rebbe and his children had 7 virtues. They were handsome, they were rich, and 7 things that everybody would like. Rebbe asks, why does the Mishnah tell us about Rebbe and his children having these virtues? As if like we need to be inspired to want to have these things. Everyone wants these kinds of things. So Rebbe answered that what the Mishnah wants to do over here is Mishnah wants us to actually Mishnah wants to address the saying of Job. Job says, I just want my bread. I just want my bread. I don't want to ask for too much. So I don't want to ask for it all. So since that's what Job said. So a person might say, I want to be like Job. I don't want to ask for all my needs. So the Rebbe says that the Mishnah is telling us Rebbe and his children had all these virtues. Rabbi Yehuda Hanase was unique in that he didn't have any pleasure from this world. Although he was very wealthy and he had lots of delicacies on his table all the time. The Talmud says there are certain delicacies that people never had, and he had them. But nevertheless, despite all the delicacies that he had, he still would always he still would never had. When at the end of his life, he lifted his hands to God and he said, I haven't had pleasure from this world, even in my fingers. I'm nothing, the tiniest pleasure I haven't had in this world. So he was living a life of luxury, and yet he didn't have any pleasure because it was all about Hashem. It was all about bringing Hashem into the world. So it says about Adam a similar thing. It says about Adam, Talmud Yerushalmi says that if you see something, you don't enjoy it, you're going to have to defend yourself in the heavenly court. How come you didn't eat it? That doesn't make sense. Everyone's supposed to be in the seafood diet. You see something, you have to eat it. What does it mean? So the Talmud's referring to is a perfect tzaddik. Well, a perfect tzaddik, whenever he sees, he's able to elevate and bring to holiness. And Hashem shows him things which are only relevant to him. And therefore, he's able to elevate those things, and therefore they don't challenge him. So it says about Adam and Eve that how come they made the mistake of eating from the tree? It says in the Talmud, it's because they added to God's words. The snakes told Eve, if you touch the tree, you are going to be fine. And even though God said not to touch the tree, which wasn't true, and he pushes Eve on the tree, and Eve survives falling on the tree. And says, oh, you know what? He's right. God's words don't happen. So the Talmud is saying, in a simple sense, because Eve added to God's words, therefore she had this mistake. So there is something to be said about knowing which things are rabbinic, which things are biblical, which things are a custom. There is a time when that question is important, when you're weighing things against each other. You're weighing things against each other, then it's important to know what's a custom, what's a biblical obligation. It was Bais Taamuz. There is a Jew in Los Angeles saying gesund und stark, and it was night of Pesach, and he realized that he didn't have his Passover cup, his Passover Kiddush cup. So we can imagine the kind of sacrifices people had for Judaism and how important it was to them. He walked over that night the nearby town to get his Kiddush cup. Now, what will you and I do? Oh, no Kiddush cup. Okay, you started from he's plastic. But he's made of different stuff. He's made of he is on gesund a different kind of person, and he now. But let's say he knew that that the next day he wouldn't be able to he wouldn't be able to eat matzah before dawn. There's no question that he would as much as he cares at the Kiddush cup, it's worth walking 3 miles. But Hashem says that I have a more important thing. I want you to eat the piece of matzah before dawn. So in that scenario, there's no question that he wouldn't do that, because a biblical obligation overrides a custom, overrides his personal stringency. That's true. But if his Kiddush, but on the other hand, since it didn't interfere with eating matzah before dawn, he didn't look at his personal stringency as something that was light. He looked at his personal stringency as this is the will of God. This is the will of God, and which is correct. There's something that Hashem wants us to do as a custom, as a biblical commandment, as a rabbinical commandment. We're not supposed to be weighing God's commandments. We're not supposed to say this is more important, this is less important. We're supposed to look at all the commandments of Hashem as equal, including customs. Even things are just customs. We're supposed to feel this is what Hashem wants me to do. We're not supposed to look at it, well, this is only a custom. As our our custom is that we read the on the night of Passover, we read the 4 questions. Some people put the question about the matzah first. Why do we eat matzah? They put that question there first because it's the most important question. Matzah is a biblical commandment. The way we have the 4 questions, the first question the child asks is, why do we dip the murr and charoses? Why do we dip the karpas in salt water? Now that's a custom. Why is that the first question? If that doesn't seem to be the most important. And the answer is that the night of the Seder is about educating a child. The way to educate a child, the way to educate ourselves is when people only pay attention to the big important things, people only pay attention to that which they consider to be critical, that tells the child that the whole thing you're trying to do isn't that important. Therefore, only the critical parts are important. In order to get the child's attention, it's specifically by focusing on the things which seem to be unimportant, insignificant, and you tell the child, no, it's worth. These things are worth it, and I pay attention to those things. Let's say a child grows up knowing his father goes to Shul Yom Kippur, the most holiest day of the year. His father goes to Shul. It doesn't tell the child this is valuable. It tells it tells the child only that it's the critical things. Pay attention to the critical things. It doesn't tell the child that Judaism is important. When the child sees, however, that the father cares about the rabbinical commandments and the customs, and he has sacrificed for them, and it matters to him, that catches the child's eye. That's what the child asks about. So that's why I'm saying a big parentheses over here about this concept. But on the one hand, it is important to know what's biblical and what's rabbinical. And on the other hand, it's also important to know that they're all the will of God. Hashem decided some things wants to tell us the biblical commandment. Therefore, the Torah says when there's a biblical commandment, if you have a doubt whether or not to do something, the Torah says that the biblical commandment to do it. Like, for example, saying the grace after meals. It's a biblical commandment. I'm not sure if I say grace after meals, I have to say the whole grace after meals a second time, just in case. Because the biblical commandment, the Torah says you don't hedge your bets. You have to say it again. On the other hand, last night, after a little l'chaims by the Fabring, I wasn't sure if I said Hamapil. That's it. You can't say Hamapil again. You're not supposed to say a bracha in vain. I couldn't say that last bracha. Wasn't sure. If I said it, I didn't say it. That's the halach. But that doesn't make Hamapil less important. Doesn't make benching more important. I'm just look at the mitzvahs all equal. So getting back to Eve, another way of looking at the story is not that you have to know how to balance things against each other, and therefore you have to know what's more important, what's a biblical commandment, what's a rabbinical commandment. Another way of looking at it is that there are some things in our life that aren't officially prohibited, but for me personally will bring me down. This is something which is kosher officially, but for me it's not kosher. There are some things which for you are kosher, for me are not kosher. There are some things which you are so in control of your life that you're able to use those things. Like last night, we're sitting by a Fabringen, right? And some people are saying l'chaim on vodka. On don't worry, Zev, it wasn't vodka, it was whiskey. I know it's very important. We have the right kind of. Okay, so other people are sitting around and saying, "I can't touch that. I can't touch. I want to be part of this group. I want to hear what everyone's saying, but I don't want. I can't touch that. So that's something not healthy for me." So, and that's because that item is a challenge for them, and then they can go too far with that, and that's correct. That's correct. So Adam and Eve, they're in the Garden of Hashem. Everything that God gave them is something they're supposed to be using for the sake of Hashem. Because they are perfect tzaddikim, they don't have challenges. So therefore, whatever Hashem sends to them is something they need to use. Because God, there's a famous story of Rashi. Rashi was once walking in the street. He saw a group of noblewomen riding their horses. And Rashi asked himself, why is it that God showed this to me? And he didn't have an answer. But later, Rashi was trying to understand how the ephod, how the one of the garments of the Kohen Gadol looked. And Rashi writes in the commentary, doesn't say the story. Rashi says, my heart tells me this is how it looks. He describes how it should look. He describes how the ephod, the Kohen looks. He just doesn't say how he knows. He just says, my heart tells me. What did he mean by his heart tells me? So the tradition is that Rashi said this event, he saw this immodest thing. He saw this level of Rashi. It was considered immodest. And he says, why did God show this to me? It must be that this is a message. I don't know the meaning of the ephod. I don't know how this looks. So it must be God showed this to me. So I should translate in the Torah what the ephod looks like according to what I've seen. That's how Rashi knew, because whatever happened in Rashi's life was something he needed to elevate. He needed to go there in direct direction of holiness. There was nothing in Rashi's life that was a challenge for him. So in a similar way, that's what the Talmud says. Don't ask for big things. The Talmud means there are things that if you're not praying the right way, you may be asking for things that aren't going to help you in life. Like, we're living in Los Angeles, and there's more people than not that want to get into the industry. You know what the industry is? I'm sure you do. You live in Los Angeles. They want to be actors. They want to be producers. For every Steven Spielberg, we have, how many thousands of wannabes. For every, Tom Cruise, we have how many thousands of wannabes. And they want to be, and they pray for it. And you know what? Getting that prayer answered doesn't necessarily put you in a good place, right? You get that prayer, and all kinds of whole new set of challenges of keeping Shabbos and keeping kosher and keeping modesty and chastity. There's an issue there. So therefore, the Talmud tells us, be careful what you pray for. You're not sure, you don't, not necessarily granting your request something that's good for you. However, if your prayer is in order, if you know that you're able to use a resource that God gives you in a good way, you have to ask for it. Like that. That's why the Talmud tells us about Rebbe and his children. They were rich and they were beautiful and they were handsome. And they had power. Mishnah is telling us that we should ask for things as long as we're children of Rebbe. Children of Rebbe means that maybe we're not in the level of Rebbe. We don't have any pleasure of this world. We're not children of Rebbe Yehuda Nasi in the sense that we're totally no physical sense, etc. But children of Rebbe also means that we have the same direction. We have we know where we're supposed to go. There are some things that we're maybe not like. We're not. We have physical reaction to things. We feel pleasure from different things. We feel challenged with different things. But we know how to use things in a good way. Like I know, for example, Zezu Gimel Taamuz, Zev Kasser going to the oil. The Rebbe blesses Zev Kasser with $1 billion. So it's only going to cause a tremendous explosion of kedusha in the world, right? Yeah, I'm not limiting it to $1 billion. I'm just starting off with $1 billion. Anyway, so it's a resource Hashem gives us, and we know how to use it. That's the point. There's resources Hashem gives us, we know how to use them, and those resources that we're able to use, we have to ask for. So I shouldn't take a l'chaim if I bring it, it's going to bring me down. I should take it if it's not going to bring me down, because there is something that can do. Now that's not. And the same is also with there are lots of things in our life. I want to share with you one story. I don't suspect you all of listening to every class of mine, but it's a story I shared 2 nights ago, but I don't think you heard it yet, Reb Zev. Dr. Bresson didn't hear it either. Maybe Dave LaBelle did. Here's a story. There was a guy who was suffering with anger, rage, and a friend of his, he must have been a bad friend, because even though it was a good thing that he did, but it's such a hard medicine that even to give this medicine, you have to be somebody who is really. Anyways, what did he do? This guy couldn't handle his rage. He took pills. He went to therapy, but he just lost it. What this friend did was took a video of him in a state of rage. The video in a state of rage, and he saw how his face was contorted. He saw how he was saying foolish things. He may not have eradicated rage from his system, but some of it he did. So he lost some of the rage after that. Some of the rage was gone. He realized that brought him to. It wasn't just that he showed him a video. He brought him into like a theater. He showed him on a big screen. There's something that about his rage that was gone by that experience. So it's possible that we may not be able to completely get in control of everything, but at least we know we could know what brings us down. We could know what we're able to use. What Hashem gives us, we know that this is something that I can use. It's something that would benefit. So in that situation, Torah says you have to ask for it. And not only Torah says you have to ask for it, Torah says open your mouth wide. And the Torah actually prefaces it with the words, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. What was Egypt? Egypt was a place where we're in the lowest level of impurity, which we don't deserve anything there. And yet the Torah says, I took you in the lowest level of impurity and I answered you. So it doesn't matter what has happened a moment before. If there's something that you're able to use for the sake of Hashem, you should ask for it. You shouldn't ask for a little, you should ask for a lot. Because the more that you have, the more you can use. Does that make sense? Any questions or comments? I just want to know because I was going to bring us back some oil cookies.
Kedusha.
Any questions? All right. All right. Have a great day. Good Yontif. Surah Davis.